Maybe meeting on.
Everybody attend.
You know, off the record,
Well, I think
it was really shitty to get this thing. Language out of it.
I know what.
You'll probably need a happy.
To get to clarify added work on that.
Who are you telling her? Yeah, that was,
To get the punny,
yeah.
oh, to April.
Yeah.
There was an article in the Atlantic magazine online about dad jokes
Uh-huh,
and the cultural and the fact that they're cultural.
uh-huh.
And then these psychologists suggest that dad jokes are in place because when you're a kid and you're trying humor, like your dad tells you a joke that you can understand, they're very simple. And when you finally develop at about age 5, the ability to really, or 4, understand those jokes and start laughing, you start repeating them,
Mhm.
right, to your friends as a little kid. And then when you grow to adulthood and then you have kids, you think back to those jokes that made you laugh when you were 4, and you tell them to your
Started
kids,
all over.
and it starts all over. And then, you know. So I come by it honest. Hey, Denisha, how are you? Good?
No.
All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and call study session to order at 6:31 PM. If we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
For which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk Domingo, if you'll take roll call for us, please.
Councilmember Williams,
Present.
Reed,
Present.
Jackson,
Here.
Lawler,
Here.
Davis, French,
Here.
and Mayor Snyder.
Here. So our study session is to discuss and ask questions in regards to the items that are on the regular council agenda. First, we will be approving the second reading of ordinance 2023-03 in regards to the registration of rental units. Director Arnold, if you would like to lead that discussion, please.
Yes, so this is our second reading of our amendment to the rental certification ordinance, registration ordinance. And again, this is just to change the deadline for yearly registration to the end of September, beginning of October, from the end of March, beginning of April. I said last meeting, but the main reason for doing that is that March is a busy time of year for the planning and assessing offices. And adding another thing busy in that time of year is just kind of going to be doomed to fail. So we changed the registration date at its other communities. Yeah, once we get that changed, folks should start expecting registration letters in the mail if they own rental property. And we're going to get started on it.
Do we have any questions for Director Arnold? Okay, all right, thank you. Next, we are going to approve the 2023 strategic goals. The Manager Snyder.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So as you can all recall, we had that Saturday work session in February where we worked with Greg's guidance to come up with some strategic goals for 2023. And in his final report, he made the recommendation that they are aware that the executive team needed to come together, review the items that he presented, and then we need to identify key focus areas and then different tasks or goals that can be accomplished within each of those key focus areas. So the 4 key focus areas are improving infrastructure and city services, making Albion a destination, build and strengthen strategic partnerships, strengthen financial position, and increase capacity to respond to challenges. So in your packet, and it was all provided to you last week via email, is kind of a summary of what we've come up with. So each 4 key areas have been identified, and then there are key objectives within each focus area. So now it'll be up to the discretion of city council to prioritize those key objectives that have been identified on what are like top priorities, and then things that are still important, but may come later. And there may be more than one top priority item within a focus area. And then some of these objectives are also multi-year things. So they may not necessarily get accomplished or completed during this year, but then we'll definitely get a good start and hopefully finalize within 2024.
So in your packets, the strategic goal document starts on page 26. Hopefully you've all had time to review that. Do we have any questions or comments in regards to the goals? Councilman Williams?
Yeah, so the key that has, you know, all the partners on there. As a discussion topic, I'm wondering if we should add, neighborhood advisory committees. I know they still got to be developed and all of that, and this may be something that we're forecasting out for next year. I know time wise, we have to put it on the, but, I don't want it to be overlooked and, you know.
Yep, we can always add to. This is kind of just based off the discussion that was had on Saturday and that initial final report from Mr. Guchow. That's what we've kind of come up with. So we can always add to if we think of other organizations or other partners that could help assist us in accomplishing some of these objectives.
Thank you.
Councilman French?
And that could probably be addressed on page 29. Key objective, create and maintain partnerships that will help the city meet its goals. A, reconvene community partner meetings. We could change the language of that to include neighborhood planning councils. That's amenable to the fellow members of council. So on page 29, under focus area 3, build and strengthen strategic partnerships.
Oh, okay.
A says reconvene community partner meetings.
That makes sense.
Any other comments, questions, additions that we would like to have seen?
I have a larger question.
Sure.
Under focused area number 2, develop initiatives to address the housing shortage. I'm not a huge fan of that word because I'm not sure we actually are in a housing shortage, given our population decline and the number of houses that exist in Albion. So perhaps that wording can be changed to address maybe, affordable housing shortage, or we're on page 29 at the top, develop initiatives to address the housing shortage. And I'm not clear there actually is one. I don't know if we've ever done an assessment of our city to know if we have a housing shortage. I know we don't have enough affordable housing. And so I'd be amenable to changing that to address the affordable housing shortage, but in terms of number of homes in the city of Albion, we're a city of formerly 13,000. We're now a city of half that. I don't think we've lost half the houses in our city. So I'm not sure we actually have a housing shortage. Now, some areas may. So I'd like to make that as a friendly amendment, because I think that's where we're all going, right? We're looking for more affordable housing options. Correct in that?
I think we need the spectrum, but maybe we should consult with the planning director. I know he had a lot of input in the comprehensive plan, and they did the study. So maybe we should get some feedback from him to see if there is in fact a shortage.
Well, the studying that was last done was 2015, 2016. So it's been some time. So a current study has not been completed. But when that study, at that time, it was shown that we could grow, I guess, the level of housing that we provide in our community. So I don't know if you want to say that it's a shortage, but I think we could definitely enhance what we currently have.
How about just address the housing
Housing
issue? Sounds
Yep.
good to me.
Because we have houses, some houses, but a lot of them are deteriorated.
Right.
Falling
Right.
down and everything else, and they
Right.
need to be either fix that or done away with so other ones can be put there.
Develop initiatives to address the housing needs in Albion, make it nice and vague.
There we go.
Any other questions, comments? Yeah.
I got one on that same, develop initiatives to address the housing, issues, needs. Can we also put, can we add a provision for, well, actually, let me say this. I would like feedback on this. My thought was to add a provision for equitable access to development. So that, we make sure that when we're having a discussion around development and bringing in developers, that, it's done equitably.
I like that idea.
Any feedback? from
Along with
the rest of it?
programs that help underprivileged people to be able to paint their house or make minor repairs. Well, not underprivileged, but people who don't have the money to finance a painting
I
or.
like the equitable part.
Those words always get you.
So what if we replace the word "the" in that with the word "equitable"? Develop initiatives to address equitable housing needs in Albion. Is that too narrow?
I'm more focused towards the development and capturing that.
Oh, so like A?
Yeah, kind of like work with private and
Mm-hmm.
nonprofit housing developers, yeah.
Or the equitable development and redevelopment of vacant.
So that, different demographics have an opportunity to participate in the actual development of the properties.
Yeah, so I think I would support what Councilmember French, if we add equitable to A.
To A.
in that, so we could make sure that that need is being met for. That
Okay.
makes most sense.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, additions?
I think that was it.
Are we good to move forward?
Well, I just want to
Go ahead.
at this point. So, page 28. Key objectives at the bottom: strengthen transparency and communication with residents and community stakeholders. Now I know I had just mentioned neighborhood advisory committees earlier, but I was kind of thinking maybe we add them to that as well.
Yeah.
And that's all I have for that.
And CP2 on page 3.
CP2 page, what page? Page 33.
33.
Page 33.
So that's the final report from,
Oh,
correct. So we won't be making changes to this. This is what we developed, this report that we just were discussing.
Was that was captured, well, was that captured in the executive summary?
What is it
But I
we're
thought
looking
it should have
at? Right, but what about page?
I think it was captured,
Councilman Reed, what is it that on page 3 that you're
CP3 at the bottom,
CP3 at the bottom?
Yeah. by city services and
Well,
facilities.
that's
That enhance quality over. Yeah, I think it's captured.
I mean, it's tied into that
All of it.
paragraph about the Albion.
on page 29.
Comprehensive plan.
yeah, that's focus area number 1.
Yeah, focus area number 1.
Ms. Mayor, can you clarify where we are right now?
So in the actual report that was given to us, it's in, so starting on page 30.
Okay.
And we are actually looking on page 33. Kind of like in the middle part under R25, that paragraph.
CP3 at the bottom.
Yeah.
But we're under the under the presumption that number one on page 27 encapsulates that CP3. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Anything else? In regard to the goals? Good. All right. Next on to approving the housing champion agreement. So we have one in the packet. And then we just received a copy.
Yeah, there has some changes in it. And I just wanted to go over those changes so we can then just reread it, you know. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's not just a red line. I mean, there's a significant number of areas that are gonna need input from the council before the agreement can be finalized. And, you know, I had a long conversation on Friday with the EDC's attorney, and to use his words, that the agreement still lacks some meat and potatoes, I believe was the phrase he used.
Is that even the one that we're getting ready to just review?
The one that you were just handed, yeah. I mean, so what you have in front of you there is, I did a pass over on Friday and gave my thoughts and comments and some kind of question mark areas that they're gonna need feedback from the council, they're gonna need feedback from the EDC. You know, some areas of concern, like by way of example, you know, council just approved the contract with the congressional directed spending individual. So I mean, we're gonna have a carve out for that. There's gonna need to be a carve out for low income housing, because we don't want to interfere with the duties of the housing commission, because by state law, they're charged with dealing with low income housing. We're gonna need to determine a term for the agreement, what the responsibilities of EDC are gonna be, what the responsibilities of the city are gonna be, whether or not the coordinator is gonna be compensated, things like that. There's a lot of question marks yet that both the city and the EDC are gonna have to kind of hammer out before we can put this into a final form.
Okay, so still, I just believe, you know, the discussion like you just gave us, if we can have those bullet points put out, so you'll send those that you just spoke of out, so that we can make sure some of that meat and potatoes is inside of this document.
Sure, I mean,
Because all I was gonna do is go over like where the changes were, and I think that helped with some of it, because I know it does talk about the work with the city as well, and the part of the EDC. That's why it was a suggestion of doing an interlock versus a resolution. So
Well,
we have an agreement.
yeah, so I had I mean, just so the rest of the council is aware, I had this initially came to me as a resolution, and I had a conversation, an email conversation and a phone conversation with Councilwoman Davis, and indicated to her that a resolution probably wasn't going to be the best vehicle, because you know, we can't direct other bodies to do certain things through resolution, and there are some other issues, and suggested that, you know, if both entities wanted to do this, an interlocal agreement could be a vehicle to do that. I'd say 90% of the changes that I would suggest, or the gray areas, are in the document that you have before you tonight. I'm happy to send an email with some other thoughts that I have. And, you know, I mean, council can certainly discuss this tonight. I mean, I wouldn't recommend voting on it, because clearly this is not something that is in the final form, because there's lots of fill in the blanks that council is going to need to do and EDC is going to need to do before, you know, you can vote on it.
Okay.
Councilman French?
So again, Colin, you said you talked to the EDC's attorney. Has the EDC board seen this agreement, and are they in approval of this agreement? Because again, we seem to be putting the cart before the horse. Council should not be directing the EDC what to do. The board should be directing the EDC what to do. So if the board can approve this, then we can approve it without feeling like we're stepping on the toes of the board of the EDC, who is Virgie's boss. So I would say, given where Cullen is sitting and the fact that this is not in any way complete, that we table this. Just, we can have a conversation and discuss it, but do not approve it because there's too much unknown. This seems like a blank check kind of thing, that the duties will be assigned after we approve it, and I'm not a fan of that.
And I do believe, sorry, that it is a discussion on the slash approval.
Right.
So then when the other information came and some of the other stuff was taken out, some other stuff was added into it, that was basically, I think we should still also put our input in.
Oh, absolutely. So
Yeah,
discussion, but not approval.
But I didn't ask for an approval. I would have said that, but I made discussion slash approval. Because I don't want to step on anybody else's toes as well. And I don't want to put a cart before the horse as well. But I do believe this whole council needs to be a part of even this discussion, even if they haven't had it completely, because they have had it somewhat on the outside of enough of them. So that we can get some type of agreement that the EDC and the city manager and everyone is working together to make sure that we are successful and to be able to move forward. And what we need to move forward in to make sure we have the ways and the means to keep this in. So this is why it is put before and not just saying approval.
Mayor,
Councilman Williams?
yes, thank you. So just for clarity, being that it is on the agenda as a discussion and approval item, we will still have to table it afterwards, correct?
No, you can have discussion on it. You don't necessarily need to vote. I mean, I would recommend voting to approve this because there's too many question marks yet.
Mhm.
You know, and to answer your question, Councilman Friend, I don't know whether or not the EDC has seen this, but like I said, I had a conversation with Nelson, who is the EDC's attorney on Friday. I sent him my initial pass. He's on vacation this week, so I don't anticipate getting feedback from him this week. But I obviously, if council discusses tonight and we have some of the blanks filled in, I can integrate those and then send an updated red line to him. And then, you know, he can discuss with EDC.
So we'll have it as a discussion item.
Yes, correct.
Just discussion. Yes,
Just discussion.
that's correct. All right, good on that?
I'm good on it. That's why I put it like that.
Well, usually if it's a discussion approval, it's.
We don't always do that.
All right, so next item is we are going to approve of the replacement of the raw water well number 1. City Manager Snyder.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So this, including in your packet were a couple quotes for, the complete rebuild of the well pump and well column at the water department treatment plant. We did the same, project to, well number 2 last January. So we were planning to do the same replacement this year. It is budgeted. And so we are just recommending approval to move forward with Northern Pump and Well. That's we worked with last year for well number 2.
Do we have any questions for City Manager on this?
One question.
Councilman Williams?
This a replacement?
Yes.
This replacement? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, so given the time, the rest of the items we'll just have to discuss in the regular council meeting. So we do need time to give any citizens the opportunity to address council. So if there's anybody in the gallery that would like to stand and address council, you may do so at this time and you have 3 minutes. Come on up.
Mary Slater, 803, South Superior, representing Sister City Committee. Just wanted to introduce the council, Constance, their match. And Constance is here from our sister city. She's doing a 3-month internship at the Bone Theater. She is a very accomplished young woman. She has a master's degree in digital marketing with an emphasis in arts and culture. Perfect for the bowl. She also has a lot of other interests like a brown belt in judo, and she has organized her own charity that does volunteer work in Senegal. And she's also a member of one of the Lions clubs over there, so let us all welcome her.
I am just very happy to be here to also to have a very good foster family. I am very happy because I know I have a poor foster family. To also to improve also my English because it's very hands-on for me to have my team share on the rest of the team. So thank you so much for this very possible. Thank you so much.
Well, welcome to Albion. Anybody else in the gallery would like to stand and address council?
What do you want to introduce? Jill, do you want to introduce her now? Till 7. We introduce our new deputy clerk treasurer, Sonia, would you please come forward? So Sonia Mall, she has joined us as the new deputy clerk, deputy treasurer, so she'll be assisting finance director Clark and then clerk Domingo. If you want to just introduce or share a little bit about yourself.
My name is Sonia. I've been in the Jackson County area for 10 years now. Married and have 2 little ones at home. Super excited for my second week here. Joining the city team. So I can come to my meeting.
Welcome.
Welcome to the city of Albion.
Thank you for being here tonight. Anybody else? Like to stand and address council?
And I asked him, go ahead.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned 6:57 PM. Be back in 3 minutes, folks.